Happy Wednesday, my Patriot friends. It is good to be with you. Welcome to the Audit the Vote podcast. I am your host, Toni Shuppe, CEO of Audit the Vote PA, also East Coast Ambassador for Patriot Academy. Like, share, and subscribe to this on whatever platform that you are on. That's the biggest thing you can do to help us right now is grow our audience so we can get the word out about our very important work. I could not be more tickled for the guest that I get to share with you all this evening, the Brandon Straka from #WalkAway campaign. We'll ask him how he wants it to be referred. But before we get to that, we've got a couple of quick announcements. Of course, if you know Patriot Academy and you're following our work there in Texas, Rebuilding Liberty, the new course, starts on June 30th, Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's only an hour and a half long. It's 4 weeks. It is truly the foundation of how we're going to rebuild the Republic with movements like WalkAway, with movements like Audit the Vote. But Joel, cue up that video I'd like to play. We have a quick, less than a minute promotional video that I want to show you. And Joel, if you've got it, go ahead and roll it.
Will not rebuild liberty from the national level. It's not going to happen from Washington, D.C. You have to rebuild from the ground up.
We've already got the roadmap that our founding fathers laid out for us of what they did when they were in this position. You live in the greatest country in the world. It's the greatest country in the world because the government was made by the people who live in it.
People have been bullied into silence for so long. We want to re-educate people. It's time for us to go on offense.
Psalm 121 tells us, unless the Lord builds a house, they labor in vain that build it. Now the Bible tells us, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do?
Wherever you are, there's something you can do. You don't have to be the expert. You can do something in your community.
I so love that. Monday, June 30th, 8 p.m. Eastern. Go to patriotacademy.com/rebuilding liberty and sign up if you have not yet. The next and last announcement that I have is the Patriot Institute. Go to patriotacademy.com/institute. I'm going to be in Texas from July the 2nd to July the 19th. My whole family has the honor and privilege of being part of what Rick is calling the founding families, where we are building Constitution City, Texas, and we are educating a generation of patriots to stand up the next time their rights are infringed upon, like the COVID pandemic, and so that we can pass this nation intact. We can pass our freedom and liberties to the next generation. So go to patriotacademy.com/institute if you want to learn more about that. It's a July Patriot Intensive for young kids that aren't sure. You got an 18-year-old kid that is not quite sure what they want to do with their life. Rick Green has built this program to help them figure out exactly that, but more importantly, to give them the skills and the tools that they're going to need. Their communication skills, their leadership skills are going to be discipling them so that they will be confident and non-crazy woke leftists out in society, productive human beings that don't live in their parents' basement. And still, when they're in there, Lord only knows. No offense, Joel. Joel lives in this home. I just realized that. Crap. Oh, I stick my foot in my mouth at least once every day, if not more often. So please share this. This is kind of big. Like I said, Brandon Straka is backstage going to join us. And before we pull him in, this is going to be a really raw, real, honest take on a lot of things. Of course, we're going to cover the Presler drama and a little bit about Brandon's video that he put out. And obviously, my audience, if you're not new to this, you know where we stand with all of that. I'm not going to belabor that point. We will cover that. But more importantly, I want you guys to see the genuine guy that I have met over the last few months. And we talked quite a bit, got to know him. I want to say we're definitely becoming friends, and he's as genuine on the phone as he is in front of the camera has been my take. And I want to share that with you and get you to see that this guy is real, and what he did with WalkAway is incredibly impressive. So without further ado, Joel, if you will pull in the main man. Hey, buddy.
Hi.
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you so much. I feel like we've talked so much on the phone, just like seeing you in person. I want to like virtual hug, like, hi.
Oh, I thought you were going to say seeing you in person, I'm so much uglier than you imagined when we were on the phone. Wow, you were so much more handsome in my head when we were on the phone.
Don't make me gush on this podcast about how handsome you are, okay? Don't make me.
Thank you. Very nice. I'm glad to be here. It's been great getting to know you the last several months, and I've learned a lot from you. I was actually talking about you last night to. I'm in California right now. I have a lot of amazing supporters in California and people who give generously to WalkAway, and a lot of them happen to be in California. So I like to come out several times a year and see the people who make WalkAway happen. And I was actually talking about you last night to a couple of my supporters and saying that you and Audit the Vote PA are a great person and a great institution organization that I've recently become acquainted with, that I've learned a lot from. And that's the truth. Your data, your statistics, all the information that you provide with Audit the Vote PA, it's just such a great wealth of information, and it's been awesome getting to learn from you.
Thank you. Guys, this is so surreal. 5 years ago, I didn't know who my governor was. And in fact, here's my WalkAway story, Brandon. I'll share it. And then I want you to talk about the beginning of it, because I think what I've grown to love so much about you is how real you are and how just genuine the movement started. You didn't, a lot like me, didn't really want to get into politics. It just kind of happened. Right. And so before we do that, though, let me back up and let my audience know I actually found out about WalkAway before Audit the Vote PA, before I even took my Constitution class and got activated, because I was starting to speak out on my social media when the pandemic happened. Of course, if you know my story, and I don't need to get into it again, I woke up in March of 2020. I was completely clueless. Before that, I knew something went wrong. And so I was raising the alarm basically on my Facebook profile with maybe 1,500 friends. Most of people that knew me from college or my hometown or I had worked with. I was just saying, hey, these masks, I don't think they're telling us the truth. And I don't know that we need to wear these. And I was getting a ton of hate from more liberal family and friends of mine who I was just kind of vanilla before that. I always posted about my kids, inspiring stuff, because I'm an encourager, an entrepreneur, always into business, those types of things. But I never went near controversial topics. And so now all of a sudden I'm posting about controversial things, and it upset a lot of people in my circle. And somehow, Brandon, I stumbled on the Facebook page for WalkAway. I don't know if it was the main one or if it was the one for Pennsylvania, and I can't even remember what month it was. But I remember finding it thinking, this is the gold mine of where I point these liberals to, because these are people just like them that woke up. And I was sending people left and right to the WalkAway movement. So I'm not a WalkAwayer myself, but I have known about you and been a supporter of you. And that was one of the things when we first connected that I really felt like us aligning and doing things together was kind of divine intervention, because I have followed you before anyone knew me, before Audit the Vote PA, before the stolen election. WalkAway was doing incredible things, and I can attest to that. And I know many that are watching can as well. Joel, my producer, showed you, I don't know if he showed you the picture. He had the WalkAway t-shirt in Seattle. You inspired him to walk away from the left. So you've done so much good with your organization. Can you take us back and tell my audience a little bit about your background before the fact that when we were on the phone, I said to you about the hairdresser. I'm like, you were a hairdresser, right? And you corrected me like, no, that's what the media said, but no. Start there and give us some background, and then tell us about how WalkAway started.
Yeah. And thank you for all of that. So I started WalkAway in 2018. And I was a hairstylist for a few years, but I think what I probably told you was that I hated it, and I was only a hairstylist for a very short period of time. So the reason why I reference that is because one of the ways in which the left-wing media likes to marginalize people is by not acknowledging whatever it is that they're currently doing that's actually resonating with people or having some sort of impact or success. So because WalkAway, thankfully has resonated with so many people and has been a successful movement, the media doesn't want to acknowledge that, and they don't want to acknowledge that this is what I actually do for a living. So instead, when they report on me, they say, Strzok, a New York City hairstylist. And it's like, I literally haven't done hair in almost 8 years. And I only did it for 2 years before I started WalkAway. And I was never very good at it. And so it's kind of crazy. But I was, a lifelong liberal, 2-time Obama voter. I voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. And when Trump got elected, kind of famously had a breakdown like so many people on the left did. And I was really kind of shocked and upset and outraged and confused and, scared and all of these things. And so I went on this journey to try to understand how the media got it so wrong. Why would anyone vote for this man who was as awful as the media said that Donald Trump was? And why did they tell me that Hillary Clinton was going to win in a landslide? And so I kind of went back to the beginning of all these different narratives about Trump. Like, did he really mock a disabled reporter? Did he really call all Mexicans rapists? All these different things that the media said. And what I started to discover time and time again, and when I went and watched these moments in their proper context, or watch the whole speech, or watch the whole moment, or watch the whole press conference, or whatever it was, what I started to see every single time was that if you watch the moment in its totality, it was never what the media had presented it to be. But see, I wasn't doing that. I was just taking them at face value. When CNN or MSNBC was telling me he mocked a disabled reporter, he called Mexicans rapists, I just believed it because I didn't know that the media lied. And when I started to discover that the media lied, it blew my mind. And I started to feel like, wait a minute, like what else am I believing that isn't true? And so I just, for months, I was like, I just fell down a rabbit hole. I was obsessed with reading, researching, watching videos, and questioning everything. Like, it actually became titillating to like research everything that I believed. And I started to just see that so much of my worldview was a mass manipulation. And so in the end of it, I realized I could no longer be a Democrat. I could no longer be a liberal. I could no longer continue to support the media that I'd been supporting. And because so much of this was tied together, I started to see that not only was I believing all these lies and deceptions and manipulations, but these manipulations were being used to deceive particularly minority people, Black people, brown people, LGBT people, into being Democrats, supporting the Democratic Party. And so I had to walk away from it. And then I made a 6-minute video talking about all the reasons why I was walking away from liberalism in the Democratic Party. I launched the video. I created a Facebook group called #WalkAway Campaign. And on May 26th of 2018, I launched the video, I launched the group, and I just said, hey, if anybody else out there is feeling the same way I'm feeling, and I feel pretty certain there are other people, make your own video, share your own story, and join what I hope will become a movement. And people did, and WalkAway did become a movement. And, over the course of the next 2.5 years, 511,000 people joined. Thousands of people shared their WalkAway videos with us. Tens of thousands of people submitted videos and written testimonials sharing their WalkAway journeys with us. And then on January 8th of 2021, Facebook banned the WalkAway campaign, the whole community, all the content, and everything that we'd built for 2.5 years. But I'll very soon have a very happy announcement regarding that, which I can't quite reveal today, but I'll be able to very soon.
Let me interrupt you. 2 things. Number one, my first question is, was there something in 2018? What was the trigger that made you start asking questions? Or was it more of a because mine was like instant.
The trigger was Trump's election. I mean, I never would have, literally the fact that he got elected. And okay. I just felt miserable, and I was trying to find a way to pull myself out of that misery, because I thought to myself, this is going to be a really long and brutal 4 years if I can't find a way to come to terms with what happened. Now, I never meant to like Trump or be okay with his supporters. I took for granted that I was going to hate Trump for 4 years and hate his supporters for 4 years. I was just trying to figure out a way to come to terms with that and to somehow live with that for 4 years. And so I thought, well, if I can understand it, then I can deal with it. But right, because I didn't even understand it. I'm like, why would anyone? But he's Hitler, right? I mean, he's Hitler. Why is half of America voting for Hitler? But the key moment, I think what you're asking is was there a specific thing? And so it was the thing that really pushed it over the edge for me was the realization that he didn't mock the disabled reporter, because I really thought that he did. Somebody sent me a video debunking that Trump mocked the disabled reporter. And that, more than anything, opened my eyes to the concept that the media that I trusted was capable of being so manipulative and deceptive and trying to manipulate my emotions to make me believe something happened that didn't happen so that I would hate somebody over something that wasn't real. And that was the most influential thing that happened to me that set me on that journey.
And I think a lot of people, so a challenge to my audience, share this with a liberal friend, please. Someone that's still a little bit sane, because Brandon, what I found from the WalkAway movement and what Brandon has done is that's like the last stand. I mean, people like me, we're on the front lines of it every day. We hear it. The Trump derangement syndrome is real. Are they savable? Point them to WalkAway. If they don't resonate with this guy, then cut the cord. It ain't going to happen. And they're just lost. So
well, I would argue that I hear what you're saying, but I think of a lot of the work that we do, and whether it's just maintaining the group and encouraging people to share their walkaway stories and videos, or if it's our town halls or debates or marches or rallies or college tours, we're planting seeds all the time. And so people don't feel discouraged if you feel like you can't, if you're not making movement with somebody. Now, there are people that we're not going to be able to save. I mean, that's just it. Whether it's addiction or alcoholism or somebody being in a cult, or, there are addicts that are never going to get sober. There are alcoholics that are never going to get clean. There are people in a cult that can't be deprogrammed. And this is no different. But there are a lot of people who can, but it rarely happens in one conversation. You rarely have one intervention with an addict or alcoholic and they say, you know what, I'm going to stop drinking right now, but you plant seeds and you do it over and over and over again. And then, at some point they bear harvest.
I love it. Oh my gosh. See why I love this guy? I know you guys all love him too, but he's just so real and authentic. Okay. So you launched the WalkAway May 26th, 2018. You launched the website. Talk about how much longer, talk about your whirlwind to fame, like overnight, almost apparent. What we both talked about this because I feel similar on a much smaller scale, obviously, but talk about the overnight fame, like what that looked like after it blew up.
Well, that did kind of happen. And I'm very grateful, for all of the experiences and the doors that were open to me. But I do want to say, although I was given incredible opportunities, and absolutely, I worked really, really, really hard. And I mean, I think harder than anyone I've ever met, and anyone else in the movement, because so I launched the video and I launched the group. And when I launched the video, I had, this is not a joke, I had 44 Twitter followers. I had created my own Facebook page, Brandon Straka, and that had again like 40 followers on it. And I had no money. I had literally $300 in my savings account, and that was it. And maybe a couple $100 in my checking account. I had like less. My net worth was less than $1,000. Like, and that's the truth. I had no political contacts. I had no media contacts, not a single media contact. So I literally was just a guy who made a video and created a Facebook group. And then my video started to kind of catch fire. And as my video started to catch fire, like I totally remember going into my Facebook DMs and, starting to get DMs, and people would be like, wow, I just saw your video. It's amazing. I just started this new podcast. Would you come on it? And like someone reached out to me and said, I'm the host of an AM radio station show in Staten Island. Would you call into my radio show? I was like over the moon. Like, you have no idea. I was like, oh, somebody wants me to go on AM radio? Like, or like someone wants me to go on their podcast. Like, I was freaking out. And so I was like doing these, that's how it started. I mean, I was going on podcasts, with people who had like 100 subscribers and like little AM radio stations and stuff. And then I started to get asked to go on more and more and more and more. And for the first like 5 weeks after I launched the video, it got to the point where I was doing every single day, 7 days a week. I was doing about 7 to 12 interviews a day. And all through, and by the way, I was still working as a hairstylist too. So I was also working a full-time job. So I would oftentimes, during that first 5 weeks, I would sometimes do radio interviews at 5 in the morning and 6 in the morning. And then I would have them at 9 o'clock and noon and 1 and 7 and midnight. So sometimes I was doing interviews at like 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. And then I would also have interviews at midnight, and I would do like an hour-long podcast from midnight to 1 in the morning. And then I would sleep for 3 or 4 hours and I'd get up and I would do another one. And this was like, there were like probably 30 people watching, but I didn't care. I was like, if I have to tell every person in this country what WalkAway is 30 people at a time, that is exactly what I am going to do. If I have to reach 350 million people, 25 people at a time, that's what I'm going to do. But so for the first 5 weeks, I did like 8 to 12 interviews a day, every day. But they started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it started to be like, I started maybe in the 3rd or 4th week, I started getting asked to go on like a national or like a regional radio show, and then like a national radio show. And I was like, oh my God. And then I got it in my head. I was like, I think I can get on Tucker. Like, I believe it. I believe I can get on Tucker. And I became kind of obsessed with it. And my following was starting to grow, not like enormously, but I was starting to get like thousands of followers, like a couple of thousand of followers. And so I was telling people, I was like, will you guys help me like tag Tucker, let's try to get on, because people are like, this is awesome. We love WalkAway. This is so cool. So for several weeks, there was like a campaign, like we were tagging Tucker. And then finally, 5 weeks after I launched the video to the day, I opened my Twitter DMs and I had a message saying, this is the Tucker Carlson show. Can you come on tonight? And I was like, So I think it was like July 2nd. I think it was like Tuesday, July 2nd. I went on the Tucker Carlson show. It was like 5 weeks after I launched it. And then the whole nation learned about WalkAway. And then we gained like tens of thousands of people in the group. It just, boom. It was just like off to the races. And then the next night, so that was on Tuesday. And then the next night, Laura Ingraham had me on. And the next night, Charles Payne had me on Fox. And then the day after that, I did Fox and Friends. And then that Saturday night, I did Judge Janine's Fox News show that she had back then. So I did Fox News every day that week. And then it was just like, boom, we were off.
Have you read? I feel like you've read the book, The Secret. Have you read The Secret?
No, I mean, but I know I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, no, I mean, I was so in the zone, and it's true. Like the universe was really like working its magic to just make everything happen.
I love that you're like a walking testimony for success principles. Like, yeah, I don't talk about that maybe enough with Audit the Vote about how hard we worked in the beginning to get some traction. I think mostly because I just want to encourage people, though, that I'm still just an average, everyday, normal person. It's what I love about you, because you just seem like that's how you see yourself. You carry yourself really well, but you're still very humble. And we want to pull people along and empower people. So I have a tendency to not talk enough, I think, about how hard we worked. I'm so glad you went through all that, because you busted your tail for what looks like overnight fame, but not really.
No, you should talk about that, and you shouldn't feel any way about it, because I think you're actually doing people a favor by talking about it, because otherwise, I think that they look from the outside and they think that that's something they can't have. Like it's like there's a magic wand that just like, and it's not. I mean, I know for a fact that so that video that I put out and me launching WalkAway could have gone one of two ways. The video could have gone viral and then evaporated, because nothing lasts forever. And that would have been it, and I would have been like internet famous for 2 months, and that's that. Or we could still be sitting here talking about it over 7 years later. And 4 of those 7 years, me going through unbelievable turmoil and hell, but I'm still here, and WalkAway is still here, and we're still talking about it. And that is because I worked so hard for so many years. It wasn't just that 5 weeks. That was the launch. That was a 5-week launch. Once we launched, the work really began after that. Like, it wasn't like, I got to like, coast after I went on Fox. That's when it got really hard. But it's like, people should know that, because I want people to know that you can achieve your dreams. You can attain what you want, but you're going to have to work for it. And I've told this to people before, because, they've said, oh, I love what you did with WalkAway, and I have this other idea, that I want to start a movement and I want to do whatever. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, if you have a good idea, you should, but you have to eat, sleep, and breathe it. I mean, it's got to be like, it can't be a part-time thing. It can't be a side gig. It won't work. It won't. And this wouldn't have either. I had to quit. I was grateful. I hated my job. I hated it. But that I think was the universe too. I think the universe put me in a job that I hated, and then said, we're going to make it really easy for you to get out of this if you're going to be willing to go down this other road. But no, that other road is not going to be an easy road either. And it certainly hasn't been. But I was willing to get out of the job I had. And I can honestly say for 7 years, I have never taken a day off. And that's the truth. Not one. I work Saturdays. I work Sundays. I work Monday through Friday. I work from the moment I wake up until the moment I go to bed. It never ends. It never ends. But I do love what I do.
And I think you're living out your purpose, and what you call the universe, I call God, Jesus. He's using you in that way. And I love that. So Brandon, let's talk about, so the movement takes off. That is just one of the coolest stories. So glad we got to unpack that. Movement takes off. I, of course, find out who you are. I can't remember. Joel, I think you said you found it in 2018. If you have a WalkAway story and you're watching, hit the chat with how you found it and a little bit about it, because maybe we can add some more videos and some more testimonies. I don't think there's ever enough, because this is truly how we make change in the country for the long term, is getting people to think just like Brandon did. And I have a similar story in that when I realized the media was lying to me, it made me question everything. And that's why even still to this day, we're doing the same things, aka Scott Presler, that we'll get into and unpack in a little bit. But before we do that, another thing that I have found very inspiring about you is that you built this huge movement. I'm sure it came with backlash, but then was January 6th. And it would have been, from where I'm sitting, I was there on January 6th. I did not go inside the Capitol. Looking back now, I think the reason I wasn't targeted is because I had no following. Audit the Vote didn't exist. I was just a random mom who had been making some videos online on Facebook trying to encourage people, but I didn't have any real influence in Pennsylvania specifically at that point. And so I stayed off their radar. I think, however, they targeted people like you who were making a difference, that they just wanted to stop. And so you've done a video, I know, about your real J6 story. I do remember finding out the WalkAway guy, Brandon Straka, which, by the way, it's Straka. It's not Straka. I get that all the time. Brandon Straka. I know it looks like Straka, but it sounds like it's pronounced Strak, Brandon, unless you want to correct people. That drives them crazy.
No, I don't care. For the record, so my family does say Strak, but that, sorry, there.
However, whatever.
It's a reverse image, so it's like it's playing a trick on my brain. That is how my last name is spelled. But
there you go.
But like, even when I was growing up, like in grade school and high school and stuff, like teachers, people used to say Brandon Straka. So I'm so used to, like, my whole life, my family says Strak. Most of the rest of the world says Straka. Like, it's almost like I have two last names. I don't care. So, but other people feel really bad. Like, if so many times I'll go on a TV show and the host of the TV show will be like, "You've been coming on my show for 7 years, and I just learned that your last name is pronounced Struck. Why didn't you correct me? Why didn't you?" And I'm like, because I didn't even notice. Like, it's a big deal to you. It's not a big deal to me. I don't care. So
it's a big deal because I've read way too many people skills books that tell you how important it is to know other people's names, know how to spell it, pronounce it correctly, because you win friends and influence people that way. Too many of those, but keep going.
Well, no, I mean, you can mispronounce it though. It's got to be one of the two. Like if someone says Brandon Straka, I'm like, it's Straka. And and then they're like, oh, okay. What? Like, I will correct someone if it's like out of left field.
Way off. Got it.
Yeah,
I was saying Straka, but because I'm just attuned again, the salesman, the entrepreneur that knows all these things, paid attention. And when you said it the first time, I noticed, and I was like, oh crap, I'm saying it wrong. I'll fix that.
It's really bad when people mispronounce your first name. And my favorite thing too is when people couple that with telling me they're my biggest fan. And it happens more often than you would think. And I'm not kidding. I'll go to events and I'll have people come up to me and go, Brian, I'm your biggest fan. Oh my God, I just love you, Brian. And I'm like, do you? Are you sure? Yeah. The biggest one, huh? The
biggest one you don't even. I was gonna say, how do you screw up Brandon? That's pretty simple, but Brian.
Oh, Brian, you're my favorite. No one loves you more than I do, Brian. Okay. Well,
I'll try not to keep my silly laugh at a minimum. Thank you, Lola Days. I know who that is. She was a walk with from early June 18, right after it started. And she says she's been praying for you since then. Oh my gosh, Brandon, the support you have in Pennsylvania. If you didn't realize it before, you're going to realize it now and moving forward. I can't wait to do things with Brandon and WalkAway in Pennsylvania, which he does, by the way, have a state chapter leader. Her name is Kelly. She's probably listening, and she's doing a wonderful job. She was out today on the eastern side of the state with a WalkAway table, and she is getting people to come up to the table.
Little go-getter.
Oh my gosh, hardest working, one of the most hardest working people I've ever seen, which one of the most hardest grammar disaster that was.
Hardest ever.
Communications 101, grammar is good. She was setting up a table and she has multiple people coming over to her saying they were registered Democrat, haven't voted that way in a long time, meaning to switch it, because she's talking to them about the importance of primaries. And I love that, because that is where another way that we need to make real change. You don't like the people that are in your backyard, locally elected, which affect your life way more than the president does, by the way. We change that in primaries, and our primary turnouts are abysmal. So I love that she's doing that. And I don't even know, she's been texting me. I don't know, Brandon, how many people she has switched their registration to. But Kelly, keep track of those numbers so that our favorite friend doesn't steal it and say that he did it instead. Okay? Because this matters. Oh, before we get on that, let's talk about
sometimes
changing hearts and minds is more important, and getting them educated, on there. As Kelly will post something online that she flipped someone in Pennsylvania, I'll post the Rebuilding Liberty link, like, get them educated. We got to get them to understand their rights. I didn't even know, like, Brandon, you must have been somewhat at least politically aware before. If you were upset that Trump won in 2016, you must have paid attention enough to politics. I didn't know when they shut the world down. I didn't know that it was a violation of the First Amendment right to assemble. Didn't even recognize it. It was like 2 weeks to slow the spread. That makes sense. Why is this bad? Now I see the danger in that. But did you recognize that right away?
With COVID?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. 100%. No, COVID was a collection of egregious violations of many constitutional rights that were supposed to be granted. And so I was actually, Toni, okay, so let's see, WalkAway, God, I guess we were only like a year and a half old at that point, which is crazy to think, or maybe we were just about to be 2 years old. So we were still very much a fledgling, little young baby movement. Even though we were doing really well, but we were in our infancy, and I was scared because I kind of thought, we're too young to be shut down. Like we're just getting our stride. Like this is not the time. And so I refused to participate in the lockdown. And so I started traveling around the country doing Reopen America rallies, and then also what WalkAway called Rescue America rallies. So WalkAway did 19 rallies in 19 major cities from July of 2020 through to November. And like we literally refused, and we were going like right into the heart of blue cities. that were like, everyone has to lock down except for BLM. And we were like, no. So, I mean, we were doing like marches and rallies, 19 cities across the country.
Super spreader. You were a super spreader, Brandon.
I'm basically responsible for Omicron.
He was holding super spreader events. Oh my gosh.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And sorry, not sorry. Like, it's, you know, and a lot of people came out. I'm not using my phone. I'm gonna do something for you for this interview. So here,
How do you not love this guy? Don't you? Yes, Lola Kelly. When is she coming to Allegheny County? Don't worry. We were going to close out with what the future of WalkAway looks like. You want to flip Pennsylvania? Turn this dude loose in Philly and Pittsburgh, and I'll freaking go with him, because that is how we change our state.
All right. So I'm going to do one more thing for you here. All right. So not only did I refuse to shut down and do all these rallies and all this stuff, but okay, let me see if I can do this one second. Are you there?
Sounds like you're juggling a lot. Want me to help with anything specific while you're sorting that out?
Okay. Who is the first American to be banned from an airline for refusing to wear a mask?
Brandon Straka was the first American reported to be banned from an airline, specifically American Airlines, for refusing to wear a mask on a flight from LaGuardia to Dallas-Fort Worth. The incident happened in June 2020 when he ignored crew requests to comply with the airline's mask policy, leading to his removal from the flight and a temporary ban until the mask requirement was lifted.
I love you.
I am forever the first American to be banned from. I'm actually the first person in the world, and that's the truth. But to be banned from an airline because I refused to wear a mask when they told me to, and so that happened in June of 2020. I was boarding a plane to go do a WalkAway event in Seattle. And the flight attendant told me the flight wouldn't take off until I put my mask on. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to be wearing a mask. And she was like, you have to wear a mask. It's the law. And I was like, no, it's not. That's not a thing. And so it became like this argument between us. And then she went and she got the pilot and she got the gate manager and so like literally 5 people came back, 5. And I'm sitting in my seat. I have 5 people standing over me, including the pilot. Everyone's telling me the flight's not going to take off unless you put your mask on. And I was like, well, I ain't putting my mask on. It's not happening. And it got really intense because like they were trying to figure out what to do and what they could do, because at this point they didn't actually have a mandate. Like if there wasn't like an actual official policy and there wasn't a law, but they really wanted to enforce this. I was getting like nervous, I was sitting in my chair kind of like, my heart was starting to race because the flight was late. I mean, this was like 15 minutes that this was going on. And I am not exaggerating. Everybody on the plane was screaming at me. Everybody. Like you could hear people 40 rows back being like, just put on your fucking mask. I gotta go to work. I gotta be somewhere. Everyone was screaming at me. And I remember this little voice in my head being like, if I just put my mask on, all of this is going to stop. Like everyone's going to stop yelling at me. The flight can take off, whatever. And I just remember I was like, no. And I thought to myself, I was like, this is like a Rosa Parks moment. Like, am I gonna get up and move to the back of the bus, or like, am I gonna stand my ground? And I was like, I'm not gonna move to the back. Like, no. And so they came and they removed me from the plane, and then I got a phone call the next day saying I was banned from the airline.
You guys, share this. If you haven't shared this yet, share this right now. Right now. I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Share this, because there's so many cool things I could pull out of that. But I think I was on a call yesterday with my North Carolina coaches with Patriot Academy, telling them part of 2020, in my opinion, is we just had to find each other. Like, who knew that we were all, when we connect with like minds, I know everybody watching right now, or most of them, I should say, maybe not everybody, you did the thing that I did in the grocery store where you walked in knowing you weren't going to put the mask on, knowing you're going to get told to do it, knowing you might have to leave your groceries and not going to let you buy food. And you were just going to stick with it. And that was a year in Pennsylvania. We had to do that. I don't know how I didn't get an ulcer in my stomach, but just like you, Brandon, the same exact, like the mental ping pong would be so much easier. I'm so tired of that. I got to a point I would get sick to my stomach when I would get out of the car on the way into the grocery store because I knew what I was up against. But just like the other voice, no, I'm not cowering. This isn't about our health. It's about fear and control, and I'm not cowering. And look, all these years later, we found each other. It's like, ah.
Yeah, exactly right. No, it's I think it's so important to stand up against the machine whenever you can, because it's, these things are all about it's about social conditioning. It's about trying to get the entire population to be compliant and subservient and obedient. And this is why we have a Second Amendment, because that is not what American people, that's not like the fabric of who we are. We're supposed to be free, and it's in our DNA. And you can't let them make you compliant and subservient and obedient, because then you're going to lose your freedom, And so it's always, I'm not advocating for breaking the law, but I am advocating for always pushing back against
civil disobedience. Disobedience.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And this is a former liberal, you guys. Look at this. This is why I was like, how could you hear this guy's story and not start asking some questions? He gets it.
That's
oh my gosh. Speaking of the machine, I know it's painful. If you haven't seen Brandon's video on his social media, X is your biggest following, Brandon. That you can plug anything you want. Of course, my audience is pales in comparison, but whatever we can do to help. If there is other things that you would like to grow and find you on, feel free. There he is. And his J6 story is at the top of his profile, pinned there, where he finally, thankfully, since he got the pardon from President Trump, was able to share the truth about what they did, how they backed people. I've heard it over and over and over, the same story, how they backed people into a corner. They scared them. They made them take plea agreements. They tried to get them to turn on President Trump. And he tells his whole story. But walk us through, maybe tell us some things that aren't in the video, or just whatever's on your heart about January 6th. Share with us about that.
Well, so, I mean, there's just like a few kind of key bullet points about my story that are important to me that people know. And one of those is that I was never, first, I never entered the Capitol on January 6th. I never walked in the building. I was never accused of going in the building. They knew all along that I never entered the Capitol. But to your point, at that, I was at kind of the height of my success at that time, and WalkAway, had become a pretty major institution at that point, and I was an enemy, and still am. But they were going after Trump, they were going after MAGA, and they were trying to take any enemies to the establishment state down, and I was on that list, and so. Just by virtue of the fact that I was on the grounds of the Capitol that day, gave them the ammunition that they needed to come after me. So I never entered the Capitol. I was never on the west side of the building, which is where the riot had occurred. I was on the east side of the building. Nobody was rioting on the east side of the building. When I got there, the doors of the Capitol were open. Everybody was very calm. Some people were pushing their way into the building. Most people like me were outside filming. I filmed for 8 minutes outside of the Capitol. And then a man came outside and got on a bullhorn and said, they cleared Congress. Everybody left the building, move out. I immediately turned around and I left. And then I uploaded the video that I shot to Twitter. And 2.5 weeks later, the FBI stormed my apartment at dawn, got me out of bed, put me in handcuffs, took me to jail, told me I was facing multiple felonies for what I had done on January 6th. Charged me with 2 felonies and a misdemeanor, and threatened to add a 3rd felony charge, which was the obstruction of an official proceeding felony. And just like you said, I was overcharged so that I would take a plea deal, which is what I did. So I ended up pleading guilty to a misdemeanor that I was not guilty of. I did not commit a crime on January 6th at all. I did not break the law. And the case against me, which was ridiculous. It was a non-case, but even if it was a case, which it wasn't, none of it was true. You know, the allegations that the government made against me were that I encouraged the mob to storm the building, which I did not. That I encouraged the crowd to take a shield from a police officer, which I absolutely did not do. And that I went into the restricted grounds of the Capitol, knowing that the grounds were restricted and with the intent to overthrow or to obstruct the congressional session of certifying the vote. None of these things were true. None of these things were true.
2 million people unarmed. We're gonna go into the Capitol and stop the. Meanwhile, it's the constitutional procedure that we were given to actually get to the bottom of issues like this. But heaven forbid we get educated on that. Oh my God.
Well, and Toni, my entire case was based on that 8-minute video that I shot. So, meaning that, you know, I uploaded that video to Twitter, and it was the video that got me arrested. But the government never had any other piece of evidence against me besides my own video. So in other words, it's not like they spoke to other witnesses and they said, oh, I saw Brandon do this, or I heard Brandon do that. Everything that they alleged against me was contained within that video that I shot. And so what's really almost insulting to me is the insinuation that, like, I went to the Capitol on January 6th and filmed myself, you know, encouraging everybody to storm the building and take a shield from an officer. And then I uploaded it to my conservative audience because they're going to love watching me do that. Right. Like because if there's one thing my conservative audience loves, it's watching me encourage people to assault police officers. They just love that. You know, like, my career would be over if I actually did that. But that's what it was like. Well, he went to the Capitol and he encouraged the mob to take a shield from an officer, and he filmed himself doing it and uploaded it to Twitter. Why would I do that? Like, what? I would lose all of my donors. I would lose all of my supporters. Why would I do that? It's just so ridiculous.
It does, and they bank on people not asking questions and not thinking, because seriously, it doesn't. No. So much doesn't add up and doesn't make sense, which we're going to get into more of in a second. But I don't want to spend too much time on J6 because that's what you've lived and that your story is out there. I would ask my support. You all know my heart that I have a very good friend who I knew for 20 years who went inside the Capitol, prayed, and walked out peacefully. But he was speaking out on social media, and they used his words against him to basically trap him, just like the rest of you. And he did spend 2 months in federal prison. And until the pardon came out, he was, you know, they tried to destroy his life. And of course, he's coming back fighting bigger and better than ever. I've had him on the podcast, but because of my connection with him, I have a really heart for J6 people. And I always have. And I thought, Brandon, after the pardons, that you guys would get paraded all over every major media syndicate. And this would be like dominating the airwaves for weeks, if not months, of what the government actually did to these people and the truth. And it wasn't. And when that happened, I thought, well, shoot, I got a small audience, but I'll do it because these stories need told. This is how we stop it from happening again. Right. And just so we don't have to get too far into it, because I had Stuart Rhodes on last week. I've had the Lego Man on. Who's my next one I'm trying to get? Brad is going to come back on the podcast. If you know a January 6er that is willing to tell their story of what they actually saw, please DM me, reach out to me. I want to get them on here. I feel called to do that. Brandon just happens to be one of the most high profile, biggest one there is out there that we've connected.
The most famous insurrectionist. That's what Julie Kelly calls me.
The most, what'd she say?
The most famous insurrectionist.
The most famous insurrectionist. I love it. How did you, I have one question about this before we pivot. How did you keep WalkAway alive through all of that? Because your plea deal, you were restricted with your travel and we were on a Twitter space. I heard someone say, I asked you to come to whatever state it was. And I'm like thinking, did you not? And the dude was like on probation. Do you have any idea what that's like? So talk about, how did you keep WalkAway alive and going through all of that?
I actually feel like that could be hard to talk about because that hits my heart because not only did I, so at that time I had like 6 full-time employees. I had at least a dozen part-time employees and like ongoing like subcontractors, you know, like video editors, things like that we employ like on a monthly basis. Not to mention all the costs of running an organization. You know, it costs about $1 million a year to keep WalkAway going. And that's the truth. And
it's okay to donate to it, by the way. Solid, stellar organization.
Thank you. But in addition to that, so there's that. But so for the entire first year after I got arrested, my attorneys told me, like, they were like, do not do any media interviews, do not do any social media, no events, no fundraisers, no speaking engagements. You need to just disappear. And I did exactly what they told me to. So for an entire year, I didn't post on social media. I didn't make videos. I didn't go on the news. I didn't do any events. I didn't do any fundraisers. All I did was send emails. That was it. And so in addition to the costs of WalkAway and keeping it going, I had to raise money for my criminal defense, which was all in $125,000, $150,000. I also got sued by a Soros-funded nonprofit. They went out and found 8 Capitol police officers who were black and brown, and they sued me and a couple of dozen other people under the KKK Act, alleging that I'm a white supremacist who went to the Capitol to harm black and brown police officers and deprive them of their civil rights. That case went on for 2.5 years and cost $250,000 to get through. I had to raise money for that. I had to raise money for my criminal defense. I got subpoenaed by the January 6th committee. I had to spend $35,000 on an attorney to get through the depositions and subpoenas of the January 6th committee. And somehow I got through all of it and didn't have to let any of my staff go. None of my employees lost their jobs. And we're still here. And we still have money in the bank. And I don't know. Like, I don't know how. I mean, well, first of all, thank you to all of the people out there, whether you sent $1, and there were many people who sent $1, or whether you sent $100,000, and some people did send $100,000. I got through it, and WalkAway got through it because of the support of amazing patriots all across the country. And I could cry right now. I don't want to.
I don't either.
Yeah. That is how I got through it. But if you're asking me, like, mentally, spiritually, how did I get through it? I have no idea. I have no idea. No, I mean, I have no idea. It was the most brutal thing a person that I hope I ever go through. And it didn't just last a week or a month. I mean, it was years of day in and day out, just horrible brutality.
So my Bible believing friends would say, by the grace of God, that you got through that. And I would agree. Like, oh my gosh, it's riveting when you think of it. It is a true miracle that President Trump, it's a miracle that he got back in the White House. I was the first, if you had asked me summer of 2024, especially when the campaign got on the vote early, we got to do mail ballots, we got to vote early. The election integrity movement knew the risk. The dice was being rolled, and we were really, really on edge. And I was telling people, listen, all my friends in the swing states, you better have this lockdown. I was good about Georgia, Arizona, just because I know the Patriots on the ground and the things that had happened. I also knew in Pennsylvania how vulnerable things were. And I'm like, don't count. I'm doing everything I can, but don't count on Pennsylvania. That I'm not quitting. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do what I feel is right and what I can control to make sure we have an honest election. But I'm nervous. It is a miracle, in my opinion. And I can also back it with a bunch of data of how it came to be. But that he got over the finish line and that he got a chance to pardon all of the January 6ers. We are given a sliver in time, in my opinion, over the next, maybe till the midterms. Hopefully we pull that off, and we have until 2028 to turn the ship around and stop the Marxist indoctrination, a sliver of time. And it's movements like WalkAway that are going to make all the difference, because now people are paying attention that probably weren't before. So back to that, we're going to get him in Philly and Pittsburgh and turn him loose. And dang it, I'm bringing my Walther PDP, whatever it is. I don't even know what it is. I just got my own gun. I don't know what it is, but I know how to shoot it. And I'm going to bring it. And we're going to go to all the major cities and get people to start thinking for themselves.
You're going to bring your gun to a walkaway event?
Is that okay? Can I be your security? No?
Well, I don't know. I mean, what is your like we're just going to just threaten people into walking away at gunpoint? Is that the idea?
No.
I guess whatever works, right?
If we're going into Philly and Pittsburgh and some of the vulnerable places that is your specialty, we're going to need protection.
You're right. You right.
2 years ago, Brandon, I was afraid of guns. That's a big overcoming for me. So I went to a training class and learned how to shoot. And so like the first day I was literally jumping on the line when they were, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a firework going off in front of my face. I can't do this. And now I have my own gun and I know how to load it and clear a malfunction and hit a target. Dang it. I might not know what it's called, but I know how to use it.
Cool.
All right. So I know the audience is probably a lot of the buildup. So then what do we do with this Presler stuff? And listen, if you're watching this and you are a fan of his, or you've done some work for Early Vote Action or whatever the case, I just ask that you have an open heart and an open mind, because we're just two people that are just normal, basically pouring our hearts out to the world to try to say, hey, let's ask some questions. We've seen some red flags here and we might want to ask some questions. So just please keep that in mind. There's no malice here. We are, I shouldn't speak for both of us, but I feel like I can. We're just as genuine as it gets. I don't have any secrets. Brandon will tell you about his past. I'll tell you about my past. We just have a genuine concern that from completely different angles. And that's kind of how we connected. And when Brandon put the video out about what he calls the truth about Scott Presler, he was risking, I hope you guys realize he didn't have anything to gain. He had everything to lose. And when we spoke on the phone and he described to me what you ended up seeing in the video, one of the things that really made me think was he said, you know what, Toni, I don't care if I lose everything, because what I'm seeing happen with Scott Presler on the left or on the right is what I walked away from on the left. I'm seeing propaganda. I'm seeing censorship. I'm just seeing the same thing that I left. And I can't sleep at night not speaking out and blowing the whistle. And that stuck with me. And I wasn't, at the time, I was underground, which a lot of big names still are, questioning a lot about what he was doing and his motives and his background. But I wasn't willing to really say anything publicly for the same reason that he and I are both getting hounded and criticized for. Now you're causing infighting. You're going to destroy the movement. We knew what we were up against, especially I knew the criticism that was going to come. And yet he did it anyway. He risked everything after January 6th. Think about this. After everything he went through January 6th, WalkAway starts to take off again. He's literally rebuilding his life and said, this feels like the right thing. And I'm with him. I feel like this was the right thing to do, was to air it out. And I'm super concerned that Scott is not addressing anything, that he's running from it, that his supporters are coming to his rescue. All of this could go to bed if he would just address some of the issues that we have both, again, from different angles, brought to the forefront. Why is he running? And so, Brandon, if there's stuff I've left out, fill in some gaps. Talk to people about your perspective there, because we've both heard it all. He's a scorned lover. He's a drama queen. He just wants to. He's jealous. Like we've heard it. We've heard it all. So address some of that stuff, if you would.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have no romantic history whatsoever. Yeah, no. So it's absolutely nothing to do with that. And I guess I'll take a moment to say too, that's very insulting, because I would like to believe that no, I don't mean I didn't mean that as an insult to him. What's insulting, is that that you could have a gay man who has worked very hard and been very successful in the conservative movement, and another gay man who has been very successful in the conservative movement, and that we could be at odds with each other. And it's not just about the substance of what the argument is. That's what I'm saying. Like, to boil it down to like, oh, well, what did he dump you? And I'm like, can we just have like a serious conversation? Like, it's not even, and in terms of like, people saying, oh, you're being petty or you're being jealous or you're being whatever. I was Scott's biggest cheerleader. I wanted Scott to do well. For 2.5 years, as I said in my video, I every opportunity I could to put him on stage at WalkAway, and these were big events. I mean, we had thousands of people in the audience at many of these events. I used to go on cable news shows and shout him out. And I mean, like, nobody does that, by the way. Nobody does that. When is the last time you ever saw anyone go on Fox News or Newsmax and they're like, I'm going to use my 3 minutes to talk about somebody else? And like, nobody does that. But I just thought I was like, I think he's great. I think he's not getting the credit he deserves. I thought, so if there were opportunities for me to be like, this guy's awesome. He's a friend of mine. He's out there doing this. He's doing that. Like, and then, I called Laura Trump on the phone and I told her, I feel like this guy's getting ignored. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a call with him. And she said, absolutely. Yes, I'd be happy to do that. And so about a week later, she contacted me again. She said, I just got off the phone with Scott. We had a great conversation. Thank you for connecting us. And I was like, great. And I am not the kind of person who ever does things for people, like asking for something. Like, I'm not a scorekeeper. I don't expect things in return. I know it might sound like that to people right now. They're like, oh, well, you just listed all these things. But I only did that because never in a million years did I expect that I would later be going through what I went through after January 6th. And that's not like a normal thing. That's like we need to rally the troops. Everybody who's in my camp needs to come together, and like, that's serious. Like, I need help. Like, we need to circle the wagons. Well, that's when I found out he wasn't one of my wagons. And there were other things that had happened previous to that. So keep that in mind. Before January 6th, I started to see things that had me questioning the truthfulness and integrity of the comments he was making about his work. Because I started to see that he would be on Twitter saying, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to be knocking doors here. I'm going to be whatever. And then I knew that in some circumstances, it wasn't happening. And so then I started to go, well, how often is he just telling people he's doing things, but not actually doing them? And I think that's kind of shady, because certainly, like, sometimes things happen. It's, there have been times I've been like, hey, I'm going to be in Seattle next week, whatever. And then the event gets canceled or whatever, that happens. But then you go on Twitter and you say, hey, I'm not going to be in Seattle next week. This, you tell people. You don't just let them keep believing that you're out there doing things that you're not doing. I don't know. I don't do that. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe everyone's doing that. I don't do that. I don't know.
Well, we've discussed this because there's some moral integrity. There's some scruples. And that's kind of what I'm hearing you say is you started questioning his moral integrity even before January 6th. Is that accurate?
I mean, I would say that phrasing sounds a little extreme. I don't think at that point I was questioning his moral integrity. I think I was questioning if he was really doing everything that he said he was doing. And I think I think to make that a moral issue is at that point a step too far. I think it was just sort of I'm questioning if he's really out there. I don't know how to categorize it, but like, I don't think I was questioning, like, is he a liar or a bad person? I think I was sort of like, is he kind of just, creating a story that isn't totally true? I don't know how I'm negotiating this in my brain, but I guess I wasn't judging it that hard. I was just sort of like, what is it? And am I right about this? Like, am I accurate in thinking that this could be true?
Yep.
But then I'll say after January 6th, and a lot of the stuff that I mentioned in my video, and people should just watch the video if they want like the whole story. But then so after January 6th, I'm like, oh, like, he's just straight up, like, because the only thing I asked him for was if he would say something supportive of me. I mean, that was it. I was just like, will you say, and it didn't even have to be about January 6th. I didn't expect him to be like Brandon Straka's innocent or or mention January 6th. Just literally like, hey, let's not forget about our friend, and I would have, if what happened to me happened to him, and he had lawyers who were telling him, you need to not be on social media for an entire year. Like, he wouldn't even have had to have asked me. I mean, I swear to God, probably on a weekly basis for that entire year, I probably would have put out a weekly post that was like, hey, let's not forget about our friend Scott. He can't talk right now, but he's still with us. He's still one of us. He's going to be back. And we're, as soon as you're back, Scott, we're all waiting for you. That's what I would have done.
That's exactly what I would have done too. Yes.
I asked for one post, and didn't get it, and even that, like, fine. Okay. It's his life. It's his social media. He can do whatever he wants. The problem is he was doing it for other people when it was trending. So like when it was trending that, I stand with Steve Bannon when Steve Bannon got indicted, or, just different things like that. He was there posting pictures of himself with Steve Bannon saying, I stand with Steve Bannon and whatever. And so I'm like, okay, so you are capable of standing up for people if it's going to help you get engagement on your account. So maybe it's just not popular enough to say you stand with Brandon Straka because I'm a J6er, and J6 is not like, when Steve Bannon gets indicted, or Dinesh D'Souza or James O'Keefe or any other number of people, they weren't J6ers, but I was a J6. So I don't know. I started to see like something feels really off about his motivations, about his whole vibe, and about the way he operates. Then I started to see what he was doing in Pennsylvania. And I got it really early on. I mean, I got it long before the election. I was like, I see the manipulation that's happening, because the manipulation started with, if we don't win Pennsylvania, President Trump can't win. That was the story. So the story was, I've done the math, I've run the numbers. We literally cannot win the election unless Trump takes Pennsylvania. So it was, so I'm moving to Pennsylvania and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Trump takes Pennsylvania. Then it was the Amish. The secret to winning Pennsylvania is the Amish. And I'm out registering thousands of Amish people. And I'm going, you are? Like, that's weird, because he can't go to the bathroom without taking a picture of it and showing everybody and, and posting about it. But like, you're getting thousands of people in horses and buggies to register to vote, and like, no one has a picture of that. Like, that's interesting. That's interesting. It's interesting. It's just interesting. And I also know how hard it is to get people to register to vote. The RNC had been working with WalkAway for years on different voter registration drives. The RNC told us, they were like, we do these drives all the time. If we can register 5 people in a day, it's a good day. They're like, it's just not that easy. And now Scott's claiming that he's registering people in the tens of thousands. How? How? How are you doing what no one else can do? And it's like, I mean, it would break down to something like, I don't know what the math is, but I mean, I think that would be probably in the neighborhood of like 1,000 a day or something. You're registering 1,000 people a day, 7 days a week. Like, this doesn't make sense. Anyway, so then we win Pennsylvania. And the interesting thing that no one seemed to notice was that, I'm grateful that Trump won Pennsylvania. I'm grateful that Trump swept all of the swing states. I'm very grateful for that. I'm glad he didn't lose Pennsylvania. But as it turns out, he would have won without Pennsylvania. So the story that he could not win without Pennsylvania wasn't true. And in fact, he did win without Pennsylvania. But that was the story that Scott created. And that was the story that he nurtured over the course of a year, so that when Trump won Pennsylvania, he could put a stake in the ground and say, I did that. And that's exactly what he did. And to make the story stick, he had to start putting out outrageous numbers. 50,000. He registered 50,000 voters, thousands of Amish people. People are posting. He's gone on posts where other people have said, we all owe Trump's victory to Scott Presler. He registered 180,000 Amish people and got them to the polls to vote for the first time. And he went in the comments and said, thank you so much, you know, ... And I'm like, you're going to let people believe that's true? Are you kidding me? And and then it just became like this runaway, crazy story that hypnotized thousands of people in MAGA. And this comes back to what you were saying. It became this thing where it's like exactly what I experienced on the left that caused me to walk away. When I walked away from the left, you know, it was already becoming Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matter, non-binary people, you know, they, them pronouns, like use my pronouns, whatever. And like, you couldn't be like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Like a person can't be non-binary.
They, them. You can't be they, them. You're one.
Right. Like, and then when you would say that, you know, when you would say like, how can you be more than one gender at the same time? And people are like, shut up. It is real. It is true. Shut up. You know, and I was like, we can't talk about it. Like, we can't even like discuss if there's no, you like accept their identity. So you're a big, and like this exact same behavior started to get connected to the Scott thing, where it's like, if you went up to people and you're like, you know, there's not even 180,000 Amish people in Pennsylvania, right? Like, there's not even half that many. And that includes children. Shut up. He did register 180,000 Amish people. He did. Shut up. And I was like, are you nuts? Like, are you literally, like, is everyone losing their mind? You know, and it just kind of, it's like, the truth actually does matter. Like, I don't know what has happened to people. And I mean, it took me a little while to kind of wrap my head around why this is happening. And I have to just assume that he did such a skillful job of creating that story and nurturing it and getting people invested in that story. We have to win Pennsylvania or Trump can't win. I'm going to be the person who wins Pennsylvania. This is how I'm going to do it. And people got so invested in that story that when Trump won Pennsylvania, it was like a fairy tale came true. And then they feel like that's being taken away from them. Something that they got. And I think that a lot of people, they were rooting him on, you know, cheering him on. And they feel like by cheering him on, they were a part of it. And if you point out to them that it's not real, like, look, this didn't happen. You're believing in something that's literally not real. This didn't happen. And they feel like you're taking something away from them that they were invested in. And so I don't know. I mean, I just think it's many things. It's a lot of stuff, but I mean, it's also, I got to be honest, it's fascinating. I mean, just from a human nature, like sort of analytical observing it is very fascinating the way that he has manipulated so many people.
It is like a cult follow. We got a lot of stuff in the chat and question. It is. It's like a cult following. And Brandon asked how long. I want to be respectful of his time. So, but I also think this is really important. And one of the things I know that frustrates me, Brandon, I think it frustrates you, is how many of the bigger names, if you will, reach out to both of us and go, oh, we totally get it. We've seen it. We agree, but they're not willing to say anything. And not judging, like, I get it, but okay, Brandon was. And I was, because I have data to back it up. And so I hope that the audience is getting to see for the first time the genuineness of why this man risked everything and spoke out. It wasn't a scorned lover. It wasn't jealous of what? He built a massive movement himself. Like,
and it's that's real. Like my movement is real. Like, I don't have to make up fake numbers. I don't have to run away from criticism. And I don't. You can literally, any person can contact me, tell me that they think I'm full of crap, that I'm a liar, and I will show up anywhere and everywhere. And if you want receipts, I will. And if I can't bring the receipts, I'll explain why, or I'll apologize and say, "Oh, I made a mistake." But I generally don't say things that aren't true, so it doesn't really come up very often that I have to do that. But with WalkAway, when we talk about the number of people who've walked away or the number of people who've joined the movement, I base that off of the number of people who have either joined our original group or joined the new group that we've created since then. We also have our own app, WalkAway Social, and we have other social media platforms. So I account for the fact that there's going to be overlap. You can't look at every follower as a unique follower. Some of them are the same. So, I mean, we really have probably 1.5 million on all of the different platforms combined. I cut that in half and I say about 700,000 people have joined the movement. Now, that doesn't mean that every one of those people has walked away, but we do have tens of thousands of testimonials. Written and video testimonials, we have those. We have that. And so I say we have tens of thousands of people who have shared their walkaway stories with us, who have joined the movement, shared their stories. Hundreds of thousands of people have joined the movement. And that's what I base my numbers off of. But
we have no problem with anybody asking you that. There's a key there.
No. And but again, they're real. That's the whole thing. And like, I don't go around saying, 5 million people walked away and I got 5 million people to walk away. And I got, 100,000 people to walk away in Pennsylvania. And like, you can't just make shit up. It really bothers me. No, I mean, it really bothers me.
I know.
Because here's the thing. And I this is the part I want to get people to understand. And I don't think that a lot of people are getting it. The reason why I'm being so outspoken about this, or have been outspoken, is okay. And I'll make this point too. Scott is not the only influencer who burned me after January 6th. There's a pretty extensive list of people who cut me off, turned their backs on me. I'm not out there talking about them or making videos about them or calling them out. And I wouldn't be talking about Scott or calling Scott out if not for the fact that he created this elaborate deception about Pennsylvania. And the reason why it matters, there's many reasons. Here's two key reasons why it matters. One, it has thoroughly demoralized so many grassroots activists and workers and organizations who worked so hard for so many years to help get that result for President Trump in 2024, who don't have a large following. People don't know who they are, but they worked their hearts out for it. And a lot of people not just worked their hearts out, but sacrificed greatly. There are people who busted their butts in the election integrity movement, and it caused them to get sued. It caused them to be the victims of lawfare, have their names and their reputation. People lost their jobs because they were slandered for standing up for election integrity, and they kept fighting and they kept fighting. And this guy sweeps into town and tells a bunch of tall tales on Twitter, and completely erases all of the effort that these people put in for years. And number two, and perhaps most importantly, it makes people believe that a cultural shift or a cultural change has taken place in Pennsylvania that at the very least is not completely true. And I would argue mostly not true. And the evidence that it's mostly not true is that 3 months after Trump won the November 2024 election in Pennsylvania, Republicans lost a Senate seat in Pennsylvania that we have held for 136 years in a district that Trump took by, I think, plus 16 in that neighborhood, so plus 15, plus 16 points. And then we lost to a Democrat. Now, this is in a state and a district that Scott Presler has proclaimed that he has flipped red. He flipped that district. He flipped Pennsylvania. So you're going around proclaiming to people, the work is done. We have flipped Pennsylvania. And then people are like, oh, Pennsylvania's gone red. I don't need to vote. I don't need to go. I know it's election day. I know these off year elections. I know they kind of matter. But do I really want to spend my day going and voting in an off election? I keep hearing the states flipped red. We're red now. People, in the best of situations, conservatives don't want to volunteer. They don't want to work. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to be, especially in an off election year. Why on earth would anyone want to spend their weekend helping knock doors, register voters, get out the vote, whatever, when they have been told, propagandized to over and over again, Pennsylvania's red, Pennsylvania's red, Pennsylvania's red. We flipped the state, we flipped the state, we flipped the state, we flipped the state. So he has completely demoralized some of the best, hardest grassroots people in the state. He has de-incentivized people to get involved, to vote, to be a part of the process, to fix the problems. He has somehow hypnotized people into believing that mail-in voting is a wonderful and amazing thing. That
if we don't do it, we're not going to win.
The same guy who was a leading spokesperson for Stop the Steal in 2020, shouting, the election was stolen, the election was stolen, the Democrats stole the 2020 election. We're not even allowed to ask, why did you change your mind? And now you've literally created an organization dedicated to making everyone a mail-in voter. Everyone in the entire state. Do we get to ask why, or is that a Scott Presler hate crime? Because I'm being serious.
I know. It's just so preposterous that I laugh. Keep going.
I'm being serious because, again, it is the exact same behavior of the left. You try being a Democrat and criticizing the Black community or criticizing the LGBT community. Try being a Democrat and saying, this whole premise of Black Lives Matter, if you actually look at the statistics, the crime statistics show that the Black community is not disproportionately being stalked or hunted by police or the victims of police brutality are killed. And you know what you'll hear? Shut up. You don't criticize that. You don't. And that is exactly what the right does when you try to point out to them, but the numbers don't make sense. What Scott is claiming, we have data that shows what he's saying doesn't make any sense. And are we not at least allowed to ask, hey, Scott, how did you go from Stop the Steal to I'm going to create a multi-million-dollar organization based on the premise that everyone should become a mail-in voter? Do we get to find out?
Danger. I don't know. Right? Because, and again, this is what's more alarming from where I'm sitting is, yes, we have piles of data to show how dangerous it is, but he won't engage. In fact, and I've written the Substack article, probably many of you read it. If you didn't, it'll be in the show notes that I put out on Friday. I encourage you to read it because there is piles of data, and I was very respectful and kind and never rude or gave him any reason to block me on his social media. I was just asking questions. I was sharing a lot of our graphs and a lot of our things that we were finding so that we could have this civil discourse, so we could talk through. I want to understand, because I had heard from some of my other election integrity colleagues, if you will, that they tried approaching him behind closed doors and that he was just very flippant and didn't care. And I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. I still would like to give the man the benefit of the doubt. And we'll talk in a second and wrap this up about where do we go from here. When I say give him the benefit of the doubt, I mean, I want to give him a chance to clear his name. And the fact that he continues to run and block, and the Wall Street Journal now did an article. And of course, he is also with Lara Trump and using the connection that Brandon got for him to prop himself up further rather than address the concerns. And that is to me, that's what's most alarming, because that proves what Brandon's suspicions are, again, from a whole different angle, that what's happening with him and the movement is exactly what the left, it's the same Marxist tactics. And if we allow this, if we can't question, didn't we all wake up and go, wait a minute, the media is lying to us? We should never stop questioning anything, ever, including President Trump. The civil discourse is vital in order to keep our republic and our way of life and our government. And we're literally watching it crumble through this. And so both of us are just tearing our heart out to the public to try to just start asking some questions, man. Like, by the way, we have inside sources on the ground with him in 2024 who say he didn't register 50,000 voters. Okay. That's a whole separate, and a lot of these people just, they're not ready to come forward. We don't know if they ever will. And my message is just, hey, let's ask some questions. The mail-in ballots, let's take it one election cycle at a time. I'm not saying we don't ever touch mail-in ballots. I'm saying we need a very, and this is my engineering brain. I'm trying to bring the credibility to the table from the way that I think and the data and the engineer. Like, let's just look at one election at a time. And those who are on the mail ballot list, of course, we target those people. They have a ballot in hand. Worst case scenario, we stop somebody from stealing it. I'm not completely, I know it's the law. That's my biggest criticism I get, Brandon, is it's the law. And you're saying don't play the game. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's a smarter way to play the game, a strategic way to play the game that might actually get a better result than what we're seeing in the trend in the Lancaster race and in John Fetterman's race and in Mastriano's race, is that Republicans who are returning mail ballots are not voting for the Republican candidate. That is a dangerous road we are going down. And my fear is it's going to cost us future elections because, like Brandon said, we need a culture shift. We need WalkAway in Philly and Pittsburgh to start waking people up. We need people taking classes like Rebuilding Liberty and Constitution Alive and Biblical Citizenship to learn their rights and be empowered to build a community that will stand up for them in the future. And that is what I am super excited to partner with WalkAway on and help bring to Pennsylvania. If you have some tough questions for Brandon, please, as you can see, he's not afraid to answer them. Feel free to stick them in the chat. Thank you to everybody that is contributing in there. Probably most of the people that are watching, Brandon, I don't know how many of them are in the, Scott's amazing camp. Clearly his no bot cultists that we've discovered have hit the chat. So that's kind of good. Penny says it's a hate crime because you get blocked. That's the Scott Presler hate crime. Yes, that is the hate crime. You get blocked. And many others are just echoing in the chat the same type of concerns. The Amish, Don, thank you for weighing in. Says that the Amish community, he would give credit to the Mastriano campaign because they were instrumental in getting the Amish community out to vote, registered to vote. There's one lady that I've sent Brandon the text message, and maybe eventually we can get her on here so she can speak. She actually has a ministry that was responsible for coordinating all of that. And she has the flyer to prove it. And she knows the numbers of how many people Amish that they actually got to vote. And she is livid that Scott is swooping in and taking credit. We're not saying he didn't have anything to do with it. I know someone up in the Lawrence County area. Lawrence County is very heavily Amish. There's folks up there that have shared with me that they worked with him. They taught him how to actually approach the Amish because their religious beliefs, they're actually discouraged to vote. They have to get permission from their religious leaders in order to vote. So it's kind of a process. You don't just set up a table at a local fair and people with, whatever they wear come over and they're Amish and we're going to get them to vote. Some, depending on whether they're Mennonite, there's a lot of nuances to this. And so someone up north from where I am taught him all of this. And so there's just so many pieces to unpack to all of this. All I'm saying is just ask some questions, be a little bit wary. He didn't register 50,000 voters. That claim is false. We have insiders that are, maybe eventually will testify to it. Somebody in the chat asked about, has anything been investigated? Funny you should mention that, Penny, because there was an investigation right before the 2024 election that our sources are saying is before Dave Sunday in the AG's office, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. But there were fake registrations, people that were attempting to register folks in Walmart parking lots and such. And the whistle was blown in Lancaster and Berks and maybe I can't off the top of my head. There were 5 counties that had this scandal, if you will, a fake voter turning in on paper fake voter registrations right before the 2024 election. So we have to wait and see, I guess, what the Attorney General comes out with and what their investigation shows. But I'm just saying, ask some questions. And I would recommend, should I support early vote action or WalkAway or audit the vote? From my heart to yours, WalkAway all day long. We both need donors in order to make our ship stay afloat. And I can't thank you enough, Brandon, for just risking everything. When he connected with me, I felt like, oh my gosh, somebody with a big enough voice that we could maybe start putting a dent in this and get people to stop going down the early voting ballot. And we have an uphill battle in Pennsylvania, believe me, because the Pennsylvania GOP has fully embraced his method. There are those within it that are questioning. We have a lot of work to do. I will get a meeting with Greg Rothman. That's what maybe here's the Italian rising up in me a little bit. Like, I do have a seat at the table, my friend, Scott Presler. If you're not, I have learned on this, I stole this from someone. If you are not at the table, it's because you're on the menu, and I am not on the menu. I do have a seat at the table, and I will get in front of the Pennsylvania GOP, and we will get WalkAway to collaborate with our blue cities to start making real impact, lasting cultural change. And so what I'd like to wrap up with, Brandon, is, unless you have anything else you'd like to share along these lines, talk about what you just experienced in California and how the GOP chair out there, it looks like those partnerships are starting to happen. I can't wait. I know that you're going to be out here at the Washington County Republican Committee in October. They've booked you as a speaker. Cannot wait. If you want to meet Brandon in person, we will hopefully get him here before October, but definitely you can support that committee. They are total patriots, and they're bringing Brandon in. And I hope we can get him into other county committees also. But tell us a little bit about that work so that we have some hope of how we can get you in our party to help.
Yes. Okay. So I gotta say, I tried to stop you at the time when you were saying this, but you were on a roll. So because the truth does matter, I do want to say, you were talking about an investigation a moment ago. There's no evidence to suggest that the investigation is about Scott at this point, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And I want to make that clear. I don't want to leave this like hanging insinuation. Like I want to clarify that, just in the interest of being fair and accurate and truthful.
Because we're sane and honest and truthful people. Yes, exactly. Not implying that he's behind that at all.
Yeah. I just didn't want to leave that insinuation hanging. What am I doing in California? Was that your question?
Your partnership with the GOP out there, because you and I have talked about this. That's my hope, is that we can in Pennsylvania get you involved with the state GOP. Certainly any county committees, Brandon is willing to help in Pennsylvania. Really, we need him in Erie, we need him in Philadelphia, in Pittsburgh, and the northeastern part of the state to do what he does best, which is getting people on the left to engage in a civil discourse discussion, learn, and walk away. That is lasting change. And I want to help him get into as many of those committees, communities as possible. So that's why I wanted you to talk about California, because it looks like you're making some inroads out there with the GOP.
Yeah. And it's not really specifically with the GOP, to be honest with you. So I do have a lot of great relationships and connections and alliances with various Republican groups or conservative groups around the country. But like, for instance, we're putting a lot of investment and work this year into California, New Jersey, Virginia, and we're going to be coming to Pennsylvania now because, as you pointed out, we have a state leader named Kelly who's doing an incredible job. You're there. I have other friends there in Pennsylvania. So we're going to come to Pennsylvania several times this year to do a lot of initiatives. But mostly, we're working in tandem with other grassroots people who are in these states, not necessarily directly affiliated with any state GOP. That being said, we're always happy to. And if state GOPs would like to connect with WalkAway, and I think that they should.
They all should.
Yeah, because what we do is unique and it's unlike anything anyone else is doing. And I'm really, really proud of the work I just began to do in Virginia, a week or two ago, because I did somewhere in the neighborhood of like 11 events in 4 days. And they were all in faith communities that honestly Republicans never go to. So I did 11 different events in Sikh temples, Hindu temples, Muslim mosques, evangelical Hispanic Christians, and they actually welcomed me into their houses of worship. And I spoke to them easily. I spoke to over 1,000 people in 4 days. And
what do you tell? Sorry to interrupt you, but what do you tell someone in a Muslim? Like, what do you talk about? That I'm so intrigued.
Well, I went in there and I did 4 different speaking engagements for 4 different mosque prayer services. And I went in and I said, my name is Brandon Straka. I created a movement called the WalkAway campaign. I said, we're a movement of people who are walking away from lies and deception that have been told to us for years by our media and by our government. We are walking towards truth and unity and patriotism. And I said, the issues that your community and my community that we can come together on are issues like freedom of speech, freedom to worship freely, protecting our Constitution, protecting family values, that we shouldn't be transitioning children, that parents should be the ultimate authority of what happens in their children's lives, that we must have strong borders, that we care about immigrants, but they must come into our country legally, that the American dream needs to be available for all people, and that we need an economy that puts American families first, not illegal migrants, and that these are all things that we can agree on. But there is one political party that doesn't seem to agree with us on this. And unfortunately, a lot of these communities are gravitating towards that party. And so what I'm saying is that I want you to think beyond that. I want you to consider trying something different and trying something new, because if you don't, all of these things that we mutually care about are on the chopping block, and our country is going to fundamentally and radically change in a way that we may not be able to pull back from. So the time is now for people to walk away. The time is now for people to make a different choice going forward. And that's what I'm talking to all of these different groups about. And then after they've let me address them, a lot of these services have they have a meal together. So they'll have their prayer service and then they'll go to another room and I serve them food. And after serving food, I sit down, I eat with them, I talk with them. I've been handing out WalkAway brochures and literature. And what I want to do is then get my volunteer corps together and have my volunteers going back every week and setting up a table outside of these houses of worship and saying, we're back. We're back. Every time they leave their prayer service, I want them to see WalkAway outside. And I want them to be reminded, these people keep coming back. They care this much about what we think and what we feel that they keep coming back every time so that they can wave, smile, give us a brochure, give us, whatever. And I got to tell you, every person came up to me, shook my hand, said, thank you so much for coming. No, they said, no one ever comes there. No, they said, Republicans don't come here. We never hear and it was amazing. It was amazing. We filmed everything. So people are going to get to see that I really did go there. I really did interact with these people. I really did make these connections. And we really will be going back and doing consistent ongoing outreach, because as I say, it is about creating permanent and lasting change so that we don't have to worry from election to election to election. Did we flip a state, or did we flip a county, or did we whatever? We know we did, because we went in there and we did the hard work of changing hearts and minds to create permanent and lasting change. That's what we're all about.
I love it. I wish I could hug him. Don't you just love it? I think the chat is not blowing up because my audience is like, holy crap, she has Brandon Straka on there. And they're just all little. If you have any hard questions, Kelly, so good to see you. Lola, that's right. Washington County, October, support their party. They're bringing him in. He's going to be the keynote speaker. I absolutely can't wait. We're going to pack the house. I would love for hundreds of people to show up and actually have to turn people away because we've just completely packed it out. And I can't say it any better. I wouldn't be on this bandwagon with him if I didn't believe in what he was doing. Found it before Audit the Vote. I found it before I got politically active. And Brandon, I can't thank you enough. I'm wearing, by the way, just so you know, I call this my Trump dress. I put, even though we're in a shed that's like, my she shed that I get all kinds of, you need to upgrade and you need to get a real studio. Like, okay, probably, but donate then, because
right.
this is what it is. At any rate, when I met the president, went shopping, got a new dress, and this is forever known as my Trump dress because it's my picture with President Trump. And so I put this. This is how special Brandon is to me. I wear my Trump dress for this in the shed with filthy, dirty things behind me. So.
Understood. Well, no, and I want to thank you for having me on. This was a great conversation, and thank you for giving me the time and the platform to share with your audience. And I want to tell you, I'm very proud of you. I'm very, very proud of you because I know how disruptive it can be when you have an awakening of your own and you feel compelled to become a truth teller, and you feel compelled to go out there and become a freedom fighter. And it does not come without harm and sacrifice and a lot of resistance and a lot of hatred. I know how that is. So I just want to tell you how proud I am of you for getting in the fight and, being a warrior.
It's going to make me cry now.
Well, no, it's true though. It's true.
Kelly says we're going to have a great year together. That's right, girl. Look out. Very good. Oh, yay. Any final thoughts, Brandon, as we wind down? We usually, thank you, Lola. Oh, don't start saying you're proud to make me cry. Please. I don't need to get emotional tonight. And any final thoughts, Brandon? I know, Joel, we usually close with a funny video, but I think we'll just close tonight with the normal outro video. And Brandon, if you have 2 seconds for me to say thank you and virtually hug you when it's all over, we'll hang out backstage for just a minute. And any final thoughts?
What are my final thoughts? Well, my final thoughts are the 2 thoughts that I'm consistently messaging to everyone all the time now, which is, 1, every year is an election year. There is no such thing as just the general or just the midterms, or that we're going to get involved every 4 years or every 2 years. Every single year is an election year. The Democrats never take a break. They never stop. We can't either. If you keep wondering, how did the Democrats take control of everything? The media, the education, our culture, Hollywood, entertainment, all of it, because they never take a break. So every year is an election year. You cannot stop. Number 2, every election is a national election. It does matter to all of us who the governor of New Jersey is. It matters to all of us who the governor of Virginia is. It matters who the governor of California is. We learned a very hard lesson in 2020, what can happen when just a few governors and a few blue states sign executive orders changing their election laws, not constitutionally, by the way, and that having an impact on the entire country and the outcome of the entire national election. So it does matter. You do need to get involved with the California governor's race, the New Jersey governor's race, the Virginia's governor's race, and you need to support all of us who are on the ground fighting in all of these various areas. So every year is an election year. Every election is a national election. Don't forget it.
I love that. Hashtag WalkAway. I'm going to get that and start putting that out on our stuff too. Hashtag WalkAway. That's awesome. All right, you guys. Thank you for watching. This has been an incredible experience, and we'll see. Maybe we'll get Brandon back at some point, but really looking forward to collaborating with you and Kelly and Audit the Vote and WalkAway campaign and any Patriot group that resonates with this message. Think for yourself. I love that they don't tell people what to think. They don't say you have to be MAGA. You have to be, let's just think for ourselves. So thank you guys for watching. Happy Wednesday again from the Audit the Vote podcast. We'll see you guys next week.